I have a lot of respect for John Hardy. I've known him a long time, and I think he was doing a really good job representing us in Charleston. I hate the idea that he's leaving. I think a lot of folks locally are disappointed in that. And we're not disappointed in John because I can hear the frustration in his voice when he talks about why he's leaving. And I think we all heard that. It had to do with the fact that he went down there to cut taxes and deal with business regulations and the Chamber of Commerce issues that used to be front and center for the Republicans, and plenty of them in the state. But he said that's not the focus now down in Charleston, and that frustrated him to no end. And I think he made the decision that was right for him, which was let's focus on something else, and that's why he's going to be looking at county government. But I think that might be symptomatic of what might be a larger concern for those of us in West Virginia who are hopeful of attracting business and people to the state, and that is the focus of the Republican Party, which seems to have been more geared towards the cultural issues this last legislative session. So my question is pretty simple. Should we be concerned about that focus, or is this a direction that we ultimately should go for the betterment of the state?
That is the question. Bill, you get the first response.
Joe has a knack of stealing my question, my issue. He's done it once again.
Well, we listed them all Thursday night. They're easy to steal.
That's right. Well done, Joe, and thanks again. Yeah, no, John Hardy is someone that's very easy to respect, and the longer he serves, I think the deeper respect I have for him. John epitomizes what I'm looking for in a local delegate, one that looks at the Chamber of Commerce issues for our economy, for our infrastructure, and the like. John does not get involved in the social issues as much as some others. You mentioned, is it a canary in the mine? I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping there's the normal, regular cyclical replacement. If we start seeing the moderates like John leaving, and there are moderates on both sides of the aisle, if we start seeing these folks leave and a much more partisan, a much more extreme candidate filling their place, is where I get nervous. This is what's happened on the national level. We have lost that moderate group that's willing to compromise across the aisle and get things done. One of the disadvantages of supermajority is that you don't really have to listen to the other party. You just the other side. You just listen to your own folks. Fortunately, within the supermajority, we have the moderates, i.e., the John Hardys, and we have the more extremes. I hope John's legacy is that of a moderate willing to work for the common good of the citizens of West Virginia.
Mr. Gilstrap.
I think there's a mutual love fest for John Hardy. I think he's done a great job for us. I think we all like him personally. Excuse me. And we're going to miss his representation in Charleston. I certainly hope he gets onto the Berkeley County board. The social issues, I don't know if they're important or not. They don't resonate with me all that much, but they also don't bother me all that much. The economic issues, I think, were largely taken care of last year in terms of the tax cuts and what have you. Both are equally important. They exist. They're not mutually exclusive to each other. There's a tendency, I think, for national issues to feel like local issues, even when they're not. Is it a problem? I don't see it as a problem. What I see more as a problem with the legislature, quite honestly, and were I a legislator, it would bother me the most, is the regional jealousies within the state. It comes down to things like locality pay and those issues where, hey, it doesn't affect us, so we're not going to even discuss it for you guys. Those are the issues in the supermajority that I don't understand in Charleston. But specifically the social issues, I don't see it as a canary in the coal mine. I just see them as kind of an asterisk, not a big deal.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, it's another. Bill is right that it's a thing that's going on nationally too. There's a certain segment of our legislature which happens to be all Republican. It wouldn't have to necessarily be all Republicans for this to happen, who believes that their best way of getting reelected is to come up with social and cultural trigger issues and pass laws about them. And we saw many, many subjects on which that was done this year. Parents, we will allow parents to get out of having their children vaccinated for well-known diseases that could devastate our schools. We'll allow teachers with concealed carry permits to be armed in the schools. These are just red flag issues that you can go home and say, I fought for armed teachers in the schools, and I fought to let people have the freedom not to be vaccinated. That's why they do it. And that's why they do it nationally, too. The problem is when you don't have a relatively equal number of people from both parties, that nonsense can't be driven away. And this is the problem that Mr. Hardy has. These are his own people. His choice is to either fight them tooth and nail and go really haywire on them, or just say, look, these are all people in my party. I can't do that, so the heck with it. We don't have enough votes. Look, there are lots of things I do disagree with John Gilstrap about. One thing, there are lots of things where West Virginia is hurting and could use some legislative help, like our schools. I think we heard Mr. Miller talking about how we're 50th, and we need teacher pay increases. And did they pass one this year? If they did, it was postage stamp money. I mean, we're going to have to get serious about this. Teachers, as they see these cultural issues being thrown up, especially ones that affect the schools, and they see their weekly or monthly paycheck being able to buy less and less groceries, they're looking to go. And other places have teacher shortages too, and almost every single one of those other places pays better.
I thought you'd also mention child care.
Well, that's another one on the list, certainly, that our child welfare system is a total steaming mess. And we have, I've said this before here, Pennsylvania is 7 times our size. They have 14,000 kids in foster care. We're 1/7, and we have 6,000. Do the math.
Where in there do you think we disagree?
I don't necessarily think we do disagree. I disagree with the fact that our legislature, controlled by the Republican Party, seems not to be able to do a thing about any of it because they're fighting over these cultural issues.
Mr. Overington.
Well, I would add that over the last several years, we have done a lot of the business improvements. We got right to work passed. We got prevailing wage rate passed. We are lowering taxes. So we have done a lot of the other issues. We have not focused as much on the social issues. And I think that that's where, there are gaps that the public supports has requested. On education issues, we have led this nation in school choice issues so that we have dealt with that issue. I think just it comes down to we have dealt with a lot of the other issues, and some of the social issues have not been dealt with. The Democrat Party controlled the legislature for decades and decades, and when the Republican Party took over, we made a lot of those economic changes that were needed to make West Virginia competitive. So that those are sort of behind us now. We have to phase out the income tax. We have to do other changes like that to let them happen. But I think the social area, the issue of social areas have not really been dealt with. So that now is the time to be taking those up, to be dealing with them. I've been especially proud of the effort on school choice in West Virginia. Today in West Virginia, it costs $15,679 to educate a child in the public school system. The Hope Scholarship cuts that cost per student to less than $4,000. Charter schools, the cost is about $9,000. So the school choice effort is saving the state a lot of money. And it gives students a choice that they don't have otherwise, for parents to find the best environment. So I think that when you look at how we have dealt with a lot of the other issues, and the social issues have ones that we haven't focused on. So now is a good time to be taking those up.
Back to you, Joe.
John, I would disagree. I don't think it's time for a victory lap on the economic issues in the state. I think many of them still are a problem for this state. We have not solved issues with child care. There was a child care tax credit bill that was floated around Charleston, never got the light of day. There was issues about hiring more teachers and elevating pay, and that seems now it's going to be sacrificed because of the efforts of Senator Tarr and the Senate. We've got plenty of issues yet to solve economically in this state, and I my theory and my topic this morning was I think there's much work to do, and I think John Hardy was right on in saying that focus needs to remain, and the idea that we're going to delve into these cultural issues and start charging librarians and museum curators with crimes is not the way a majority of West Virginians want the state legislature to go. And so my theory is that I think John Hardy, and I hear others of a similar mindset, are leaving the legislature, and that more people are being elected who are going to come in with the idea that they want to reshape West Virginia in the image that they have always espoused for themselves personally. And I don't think that's the direction we want state government to go. So I think that it is a symptom that is indicating we could have a legislature that is not representing the majority of West Virginians going forward. And the majority, I think, and you'll agree with me on this, I think we put the Republicans in charge mostly because of the economic issues. And to say that we're done with that or that we have basically completed our work, I think is a mistake. And I hope it's not the thinking of a majority of folks down there in Charleston.
John, a response?
The economic issues will take time to be fully implemented. Phasing out the income tax, some of those things are going to take time. So that I think the gap that has not been dealt with are a lot of the social issues. West Virginians basically are conservative. They are pro-life. They are pro-Second Amendment. They are pro-taxpayer. And some of those issues have not been dealt with. So it's the chance for the legislature to do it. The other thing I would mention about John Hardy, and I can speak from experience, it is a 5-hour drive, a 4 to 5 hour drive. And you have to really make a commitment in your life to be able to make that trip back and forth. And it can wear you out pretty fast. So I think John Hardy probably felt at the same time that he could be more effective on a local level without having your life disrupted for 2 months and each year. So, I mean, I think there's a number of factors that were part of his decision making.
Joe, some Democrats in the state think that the Republicans' focus on social issues will eventually cause the pendulum to swing back in their favor. Maybe not to get to 50-50 right away, but at least to chip away at that supermajority that the Republicans currently have. Joe, do you buy that as an argument? And I'll come back to you, John, and ask, as a former longtime legislator, do you fear that as an answer back from the voters? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Rob, studies show that states that have flipped from red to blue or blue to red in the past have remained so for at least a generation or two. It doesn't go back and forth in most states that quickly. I don't think that there'll be such a backlash that the Republicans will start suffering at the polls. I think they're entrenched, and you'll see them continue to be entrenched, in part because of the way they draw the voting districts, which is their prerogative when you're the party in power, but also because they control pretty much the narrative in the state politics. So I don't see the Democrats making a lot of headway in getting people elected suddenly. I think it's going to take a lot of work and time, but I think you'll see some erosion of support for certain kinds of Republicans as we go forward, because I think some folks in West Virginia who suffer economically still and have to look outside the state for employment or other opportunities might get a little frustrated about a legislature that wants to focus on vaccinations and compelling students in school to watch pro-life videos. That may frustrate some folks, and I can see maybe different kinds of Republicans getting elected in the future.
I think it's important. we malign a lot of these social issues, and we've been very unspecific about which issues we're talking about here. But if a West Virginian who's a Christian West Virginian believes that the problems in the state and the nation have to do with taking God out of the schools and out of the family and out of our lives, then it makes a lot of sense to put "In God We Trust" back into the classrooms. That's not a little issue for them. And I don't know if that's one of the things we're talking about. That is a piece of legislation that is out there. So it's easy to malign that as not an important thing, but it is an important thing for those people. So, I get a little uncomfortable here when, we kind of take this, we collectively, not anybody in particular, because I do this too, we kind of take this elitist approach of because this silly little thing is important to this silly little person, it is not worthy of being adopted by the legislature. So I think we need to be careful and respectful that every bit of legislation that is being handled is in fact important to somebody, else it wouldn't be there. So, we can't just flush all this away and say that it's silly, right? Is it worth the time? Well, it obviously is worth the time for those who are pursuing it. Is it worth the time in my mind? Some are and some are not. Larry, you were talking about the guns in the schools with teachers. I actually think that's a safety thing. And in favor of having the teachers carry it. I think it's a very important safety thing. You don't. That's fine. Smart people can disagree. But I do think, we need to be careful about just sort of dismissing all of this stuff as silly.
If you look at the past history, I think the Democrat Party was in control for up until 2014. They've been in control of the state for 60, 70, 80 years. So that, and I think they missed a lot of those issues, especially, you look at things like one of the first bills I got passed was bring the Pledge of Allegiance back so that every day begins with the Pledge of Allegiance. Those were sort of fundamental values that I think all West Virginians supported, but they had been ignored by the Democrat Party when they had complete control. I mean, I think when you look at the 89% of the House that is Republican, not all of those, it covers the whole mix from, conservative to moderate. I mean, one of the problems that I think the Republican Party right now has is that a lot of those, what we call rhinos, are former Democrats that have switched. They have felt that on a national level, the party is not representing the values of West Virginians, and they know that because of that, it's very hard to get elected as a Democrat in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. So that from a practical reason, they say, geez, I'm going to switch. I was looking at the directory, and I was amazed just since I left the legislature, how many Democrats I was looking at, and they are now Republicans. They have recognized that it's a lot easier, that the values that the Democrat Party, especially on a national level, don't represent the values of West Virginians. And so for a practical reason, I think it's pretty safe that the Republican Party, as long as they stand for these values, are going to be basically in control.
And on that note, we take our top of the hour break a few minutes past it. This segment of the show today brought to you in part by the committee to re-elect Wayne Clark to the House of Delegates, also by the Berkeley County Health Department's Quick Response Team. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg and TV 10. Admiral, you're on the clock next. If you or someone you know suffers from the disease of addiction, help is available from the Berkeley County Quick Response Team with peer recovery coaches and support promptly to the homes of those who've recently experienced an overdose. This collective effort towards recovery brings resources and services to the community, including naloxone and treatment options. Call 304-267-1313 or visit the Berkeley County Recovery Resource Center at 800 Emmett Rouse Drive, Martinsburg. The Berkeley County Quick Response Team is funded through a DHHR grant with the Berkeley Morgan County Health Department.
Democrat. Republican Wayne Clark, your delegate for West Virginia's 99th District. Income tax cuts for all West Virginians? Wayne delivered. School choice for kids and families? Wayne delivered. Protecting our kids from online predators? Wayne delivered. Republican Wayne Clark has worked to pass some of the most conservative policies in our state, protecting the rights of the unborn and our Second Amendment rights, bringing good-paying jobs for West Virginians. Vote to re-elect Wayne Clark in the Republican primary on May 14th. Paid for by Wayne Clark for West Virginia.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%. Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above-market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
Cody, do you feel lucky?
No, why?
You should, because I'm in your commercial.
That makes me laugh.
Well, yeah, without me in your commercial, they wouldn't be memorable. Everybody knows that you have a potty mouth and that you are a funny guy, and they can trust you.
Well, you aren't wrong there, kiddo.
So you are saying I'm right?
No, but if you need your car done this month, stop over to Cody's Auto Body on Wilson Street in Martinsburg, where we will get you back on the road in no time.
You know I'm right.
That's Cody's with a T for f***ing trust.
How rude.
Providing reliable protection since 1877, we are Farmers and Mechanic Insurance Companies. For over a century, we have been dedicated to provide dependable insurance protection and excellent customer service. We specialize in auto, home, farm, and business insurance. Our products are backed with personal, hands-on service. You can trust us to protect what matters most to you. For all of your insurance needs, there's Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies.
From breathtaking outdoors to unique local eats, world-class geocaching, and thriving local culture, Martinsburg, Berkeley County, West Virginia is where you can live your adventure. Berkeley County offers fantastic outdoor experiences, from our rugged hiking paths to scenic nature paths, public parks, fishing streams, and nature preserves. Cap off your outdoor adventures with a stroll through historic downtown Martinsburg. Join us and immerse yourself in our rich local history and scenic surroundings. Check out upcoming events and plan your adventure at travelwv.com.
Mother Shuckers. Fresh Florida stone crab straight from the boat to your throat. Blue crabs, king, snow, Dungeness, all available year-round. Try and find that anywhere else around here. Homemade soup specials every day. Mother Shuckers is located at 1014 Winchester Avenue in Martinsburg. Mother Shuckers, we have an opinion. If you don't like it, shuck it up, Buttercup. Come on over.
Panhandle Printing and Design, your local one-stop print shop. We help people manifest their visions, make them come to life. From logos, posters, and window graphics, to banners, business cards, promotional items, car wraps, and more. The options are limitless. One thing's for certain, when you visit Panhandle Printing and Design, you'll be delighted to work with our prompt, professional team as you describe to us what you're looking for. Envision, create, and bring your ideas to life with Panhandle Printing and Design.
Car accident? Get more with Mansion Ferretti. After a car accident, what does it mean when we say get more with Mansion Ferretti?
It means making the insurance company do what's right.
It means getting a powerful local law firm on your side, one with decades of experience.
And it means the peace of mind of never paying us a fee unless we get money for you. So if you've been injured,
get more with Mansion Ferretti. 304-264-8505.
S. Moffitt, professor of pediatrics at WVU Medicine.
And I'm an infectious disease specialist. That's what I do, take care of kids with infections.
The legislature has voted to approve relaxing of vaccination requirements.
I think it's a step in the wrong direction. We have the highest vaccination rates for school-age kids, and we do not have outbreaks because of our strong laws. It's not just protecting our kids, it's protecting the little babies who can't be vaccinated, the immunosuppressed, The normal, healthy kids who happen to be a non-responder to vaccines, we're protecting pregnant women, we're protecting the elderly, those with cancer.
Has your input or any of the other infectious diseases experts been requested by the legislature?
No, we've called, we've emailed. The pediatricians have been burning the phone lines to say, please oppose this bill. They haven't asked us to come and give any facts. Listen to our physicians, our infectious disease experts about what's right for children.
Live from the Talk Radio WRNR studios, it's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario.
Thank you, Cliff Maxwell, and good morning and welcome back to the program. We are produced by the sports doctor, Colin McLaughlin, who has been extra busy this morning because I don't know why. Sometimes you just kind of get those days, but this is one of them. And started at 4:30 when I got here this morning with network problems and internet connections and what have you. So we're kind of putting Colin through the ringer here this morning. So be kind to him. Everybody have a nice thing to say on your way out the door to the sports doctor today. We're brought to you in part by the Mansion Ferretti Law Firm, which I could tell you about, or I could let the Ferretti part of that law firm tell you about it himself. Joe?
Rob, we can be found on the internet at wvjusticelawyers.com, or, of course, if you want to visit us at 408 West King Street in beautiful downtown Martinsburg, you're welcome to stop by. If you have any questions about insurance claims or personal injury, we'll be glad to sit down with you and discuss your potential case.
Joe, I like that. 35 years in the business, you still get choked up when you talk about what you do.
Yeah, a little froggy this morning.
Let's see here. On the clock is Mr. William Stubblefield. We'll get to you in a second as soon as we introduce all the other players, including New York Times bestselling author John Gilstrap, also known as the Social Assassin. Johnny.
Howdy.
He is also a John, the OG, John Overington. Good morning, John.
Great to be here as always.
He was TKO'd by John Overington 35 years ago. Larry Schultz. Larry.
Great to be here.
Great to have you.
A lot of fun.
Now on the clock with issue number 2, the Admiral.
I'm going to have a procedural discussion as opposed to a partisan or political discussion. And I'm going to pick up on your introduction. Our legislators are supposed to be a deliberative body, and as a consequence, we have confidence in the fact they are deliberative. This vaccine issue that has been received quite a bit of visibility lately. By the way, I think the religious component has been taken out of it, but it still has a exempting the charter schools and the private schools from children having a vaccination. We're talking about measles and some of the other childhood diseases. But the troublesome spot, and as the introduction mentioned, some of our leading pediatricians attempted to have input to the deliberative process, and they were ignored. They wrote letters, they made phone calls, they were not invited to give their sage advice to the legislators. They were going through this process. I think that's probably one of the consequences of having a supermajority, that you can do what your caucus thinks right and then just charges ahead. My question to my colleagues is, how much of a mistake do the legislators make in both perception and practicality in using their own advice as opposed to seeking that of the medical profession?
Now, Bill, I'm going to use some editorial override here because that's a loaded question. So you're basically saying how dumb are they, this much or that much? I'm going to change it to is it a mistake, as opposed to how much of a mistake, because you're already assuming the negative.
Yeah, that's right. And you're correct. You're exactly correct, Rob. I overthought that question. You're right.
It's okay. You don't have to say that I'm right.
No.
It helps.
Helps to get invited back. I mean, sure. But no. So, Joe, why don't you go first? You're on the phone.
Well, I recall, I can't remember the name of the doctor, was on the radio and saying that
Dr. Moffitt
called. They've called, they've emailed the legislature about this issue, and they didn't have a voice. And one of the delegates who was listening to the show responded, "You have to be here. You can't do that remotely to be effective and to be heard." In this day and age, where we have video conferencing capabilities, and we got companies in this country that are making buku bucks like Zoom, offering those options, I can't imagine that there couldn't have been a situation or an opportunity for the legislature to hear from the foremost experts in the state on infectious diseases and the importance of vaccinations, not only for individuals, but for the public at large. That's not acceptable. So to answer Bill's question, and he would have been a very good cross-examiner, yes, it was a mistake to not receive that information if it was available, and it was a mistake for them not to consider it in deciding to grant leeway to private school students and charter schools, and to grant a lot of liberties regarding the vaccination requirements. It's a public health question, and I've yet to hear a public health reason to exclude students from vaccinations.
Let's go to former Delegate John Overington. John, you were involved in the deliberative process in regards to what Bill asked, and Joe's point of view on the answer. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that when you look back during the coronavirus and the shutdown, we had a lot of experts that were dead wrong. And I think that the legislators in Charleston were looking at not relying on those same experts that caused a lot of damage to our school system, to many parts of our environment. So I think that from that perspective, they wanted to go back to what the people wanted, and excusing religious schools, homeschoolers, made sense. And so I think from that perspective, they didn't want to rely on experts. They wanted to rely on what a major segments of the public was interested in.
Do we know it was major segments or just the noisiest segments of the public, John? I mean, if 90-something% of the people are vaccinated, is it a noisy segment of the public or the majority of the public that doesn't want vaccinations for children?
Well, I think a major segment of the public did not feel it was necessary. It was government intrusion into their lives where they didn't feel it was justified.
Childhood vaccines? That's what we're talking about here, not coronavirus vaccines.
Well, we're looking at, we don't have the polio problems that when I was growing up had a major impact. Some of the other diseases are not that much of a problem currently. And so it was sort of, why do we have to do that? And so I think the public had said, if you don't see an immediate problem, if you don't see a major problem, then why should you go through things that do not seem to be necessary? We don't have a polio problem in the country now. I mean, it may be coming back for other reasons, such as immigration reasons, but I think that they felt that they were representing a major segment of the, and sure, it's a noisy segment, but it also is I think, a pretty grassroots strong segment as well.
Larry Schultz.
I grew up near a lot of Amish folks, and I love them. But when I have a problem with my car, I don't ask an Amish guy how to fix it. They don't have cars, okay? And so the idea that we will let people's limited understanding of the mechanisms of vaccines guide our policy without consulting experts is borderline insane, in my view. The experts are the people who work with the vaccines, vaccinating children, and have pretty much wiped out such things as measles and smallpox and a bunch of other childhood common diseases. And yes, there's still polio in this world of ours. And if you stop giving the polio vaccine, I want to know what penalty you will pay when the first child ends up on a ventilator from polio. To me, it's like saying, well, those double yellow lines on the highway, we shouldn't let highway engineers decide where they go. We should let people vote on whether it's a passing zone in the middle of a triple curve. It's just a safety matter. It's a matter of public safety. And if our legislature will not consider those who have devoted their lives to the study of that particular piece of public safety, then I can't have any respect for the conclusions they reach. And so, yeah, you've got to talk to the experts. I know why they didn't want to talk to them, because they were going to be told this is a walking disaster. But and they didn't want to hear that. I get that. But if I have to decide what I'm going to do in my life, I want to hear from somebody who studied it all of his life, not from somebody who got elected to the West Virginia legislature and really knows nothing about vaccines.
Mr. Gilstrap.
I have thought about this issue a lot, and sometimes I think too hard about these things. Personally, I think it's foolish not to get the vaccines. I think it's foolish not to get your kids vaccinated. I think that the way diseases work is that they mutate among unvaccinated communities, and all of that is really bad. However, when it comes to mandating that third parties must get vaccinated, that's a whole different step. And that's where I start getting uncomfortable. Only because if it's a hard stop for me if we say that every child must be vaccinated. Every child that I think would be wrong. Every child who's going to go to public school, okay. Because now there's a thing. If you're going to go to my school, then you have to follow my rules, and then you have to do this. Okay. As far as but that's really not the question here. The question is in terms of getting the expert witnesses. I don't know how much time, I've never attended any of these meetings. I don't know how much time they have. The fair thing to do, I'm going to guess somewhere out there are doctors who will say that vaccines are not necessary or they're harmful or, whatever, that will be violently disagreed with by Maddox, the doctor we had on. Moffitt. To air both sides and then make the decision they're going to make anyway, right? So, should they have had experts? Yeah. I think they should have. Did they make the wrong decision? Probably. I don't know. But, it's too easy to sit back and say, well, we're going to pass a law and we're going to make people do this thing because it's good for them. I think it's a smart decision for me. I don't know that it's a smart decision to make other people do the same thing.
Mr. Stubblefield, comes back to you.
Yeah, our legislators are elected to make tough decisions, and they're elected to make the best decisions they can possibly make based upon fact and not a political popularity. And so I hope that their decision was correct. If we moved ourselves back 50, 60, 70 years or so ago when polio was running rampant, smallpox was concerned, chickenpox was concerned, could you sit back and say, well, it's not the noisy group, the largest group is not in favor of it, therefore we're not going to take action? We'd be fighting with polio today. We'd be fighting with smallpox today. So I think the politicians have to make tough decisions, and hopefully their decisions are correct.
But we can't discount the fact, we talked to Dr. Moffitt about this, that back then there was a political element of it because everybody was terrified of these diseases at the time, right? So that yes, let's get everybody vaccinated because we're 2 generations away from that right now, which isn't science, right? I agree that these are devastating diseases, but the body politic has forgotten about it and they don't see it. So we can't separate the politics from the science, even when it first started.
And don't you trust your parents to make that right decision? It's the parents that when they see polio becoming a problem, they're going to jump in and do it. Can't the parents make that decision? They can evaluate whether polio is a problem today. There's negative consequences to some of the vaccinations, so that each family can help make that decision themselves based on if they see it as a major threat, if they see polio become rampant, it's not the government that's telling them that's going to mandate them to take the shot. It's going to be the parents looking out for their kids.
John, we don't trust the parents to dress their daughter in a skirt of a certain length to go to school. We don't trust them to do that. Okay, we can send kids home from school who have inappropriate attire, yet we're going to let them go to school unvaccinated. And in the face of 50 years of success in basically eradicating these infectious diseases, we're suddenly going to reverse course. It makes no sense to me, and I've yet to hear a public health argument against compulsory vaccinations for students. It all gets back to parental choice, and parents don't have choices with a lot of things with regard to sending their kids to school. I think we can agree on that. So give me a public health scientific reason to not have these kids vaccinated for the major infectious diseases like rubella and measles and mumps and polio.
And John, going back to your point, it should be parents' rights. Why are we telling a parent that their child cannot become a transgender? We're selective in what we let our parents do, and certain things we say fine, other things we say nope. Parents not. We're the legislators know what's best.
On that note, we will move on to issue number 3, and with issue number 3, it's the social assassin, John Gilstrap.
You got to understand that nickname. You got to watch an episode of
Curb Your Enthusiasm, season 8. He says what you're thinking.
Right. It finally made sense. I had no idea what this meant. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this nonpartisan. Okay, and because partisanship clouds logic. Okay, if we accept, for the sake of argument, that Trump is an existential threat to the United States of America, then beating Trump is an essential. That is the goal certainly of the Democratic Party. And by extension, if he is an existential threat, he has to be removed. He has to be kept from taking office. That being the case, we've seen polling from the New York Times and Siena College. 97% of Trump supporters from 2020 continue to support him, while only 83% of 2020 supporters for Biden continue to support. 10% of 2020 Biden supporters are now looking at Trump. Biden's overall performance numbers are tanking. His physical and mental decline is obvious, irrespective of what people want to say. The emperor has no clothes here. I don't think anybody cherishes...
Got to get that visual out of my mind for a second. Hold on.
Nobody cherishes the idea of a Harris presidency. And there are a lot of Republicans who wish they had another choice that was a moderate. It's not going to be another Republican, but maybe a moderate Democrat that they could hold their nose and vote for. So remember, the goal is to keep Trump out of office. Isn't it time to take, I don't know, Bill, if you mentioned this on the air, if it was off the air, to have a surprise at the convention and have a different Democratic candidate than Biden?
On your setup here, I want to make sure people understand that you're not an anti and never Trumper. You're not one of those people.
I am not one of those people. I am saying for
sake of discussion.
For the sake of discussion, right.
Because when you start off with, let's assume he is an existential threat to the...
I do not believe he is an existential threat.
Right, okay. All right. Mr. Overington.
The public has a right to make that choice. And, the existential threat to this country, I think, is basically restrictions on how government has gotten beyond its role of trying to be impartial. I would say the existential threat to the country is a mainstream media, not all media, but the mainstream media that only reports negative things about Trump and positive things about Biden, or that a government that tries to exclude major blocks of the public from voting. That, to me, is the existential threat to this country. And it comes back to the public has the right to make the choices based on what they feel what their values are, what their priorities are, and whether it's vaccinations or other types of things. I assume that the public is smart enough to make those decisions best for themselves. The role of government shouldn't be a nanny state, as in many cases where we're heading. So I would make the case that Trump is probably a better way to save the country rather than being an existential threat to the country.
Mr. Ferretti.
Well, John's question that whether or not there should be a movement at the convention to replace Biden, I think, at least based on last night, it appears that ship has sailed. The Democrats this morning seem to have closed ranks and are going to get behind him because he was able to give a 70-minute speech without decompensating before our eyes. So, it was a low bar, but he pulled it off last night. So there seems to be some consolidation of support behind him. I don't think you're going to see a movement at the convention to do anything other than to formally nominate Joe Biden as the next presidential candidate for the Democrats. And as for John Overton's point about Trump and him, perhaps being what the country needs, I have misgivings when 16 of his former cabinet members have explicitly stated they're not going to support him. That gives me great pause. The guys who worked and ladies who worked with him most closely, they're not getting behind him. In fact, they're warning the country. If you read their books and listen to what they're saying, they have great misgivings about another Trump presidency, and I choose to give that some credence.
Billy?
Yeah, I've been, for the last several months, trying to find a way out of this Trump-Biden runoff, because what 75% of the people in this country, as John would say, the consensus of the people, they don't want either one of them. And I've been trying to find a way out. One with the third party, that's basically sizzled. When Larry Hogan and Joe Manchin pulled out, I don't think the Unity Party had it in steam at all. The point that John Gilstrap was making about the convention, the hope was that Biden would run the tables in the primary, get to the convention, and realize he's not the best way forward. He'd release his delegates, and then they would select a delegate or nominee the way they used to by open floor convention. And I think Joe Ferretti hit it on the head. After last night, that ship has sailed. So I think the only realistic thing we can expect now, regardless of what the country feels, we're going to have a choice between Biden and Donald Trump.
Larry Schultz, I suspect you disagree with the premise that Biden is incompetent.
Right, especially given the records that he set in almost every measure of economic performance by a president of the United States. Remember, the anti-deficit hawks don't like to talk about this, but Trump had $8 trillion in deficits in 4 years. All-time American record. If I'm not mistaken, we fought World War II with lower deficits than Donald Trump delivered in 4 years. So that's just not even close. Yeah, are there still deficits? There sure are. Just like there are, in fact, if you want to look back to a time when we didn't have deficits, that would be a Democrat by the name of Bill Clinton who balanced the budget. Not a Republican. They talk about it all the time, but when they get elected, zing, it goes through the sky. Look, Donald Trump told us about COVID that it would be over in 15 days. It was more like 28 months or something. And 1,300,000 Americans died. Some of them on Joe Biden's presidency, but he was handed that problem. Joe Biden has done an excellent job with our economy. Did inflation go out of control after we spent a lot of money during COVID bailing out small businesses who didn't have to pay the loans back, even while the same people tell us that all these students should have to pay those loans? This is ridiculous. Small businesses all over this country got huge piles of cash for not laying their people off, and then they were all forgiven from paying back what was called a PPP loan. All right? So, you know, we have different standards, let's just say. As Joe Biden was talking about last night, he invited the Republican congressman who voted against the infrastructure bill to let him know if they weren't able to cover all the groundbreaking ceremonies, and Joe would help him out by sending some of his people down. They're taking credit for a bill they voted against. And this has happened, and then they say that Joe Biden doesn't have the capacity to be logical. Well, he sure does, and he's doing a great job. He will be reelected.
Back to you, Mr. Gilstrap, before we go to the commercial break.
I did not word the question well. I actually wanted this to be more about how stacking the odds in one's favor. It's not going to be a walk away for either candidate, however it works. But I think that Joe Biden is a very damaged candidate. I think that he's a diminished candidate. The numbers speak for themselves. Larry, if stipulating that everything you say, most of which I disagree with, I'll stipulate that all of it's right, the message is not getting out. So it just seems to me that if the Democrats really, really, really want to win, they ought to put in a candidate that is less likely to lose.
On that note, we stop. And we come back. Larry Schultz is on the clock with issue number 4, segment brought to you in part by CMA Honda and by Larry DeMarco and Company at Century 21 Modern Realty Results.com here. And this date, 2016, George Martin, widely regarded as the fifth Beatle, passed away.
At Carter Myers Automotive, what we do today will tomorrow become what we've done. That's why Owners Just Do More no longer defines us. Our work is never done because what we live by doesn't have a finish line. We care. Our company of owners is moving lives forward every day by finding more ways to care before, during, and after your purchase. Because when you're happy, so are we. Carter Myers Automotive. Proud to be the owners who just care more.
Hi, Crescia Hornby here. Larry DeMarco, broker of Modern Realty Results, believes he has some of the best real estate agents in the Eastern Panhandle. Agents at Modern Realty Results have years of experience and knowledge of the local real estate market. Agents within the office work as a team to provide quality customer service. We strive to always ensure client satisfaction through handling every transaction with honesty and integrity, all while offering competitive rates. Modern Realty Results is veteran-owned and managed. Please call us at 262-4222, modernrealtyresults.com.
The City of Martinsburg Police Department is now recruiting for new officers to serve the community and to be a part of our team. Starting pay ranges from $53,813 to $70,565 depending on certified experience, with a raise once you're certified and a potential sign-on bonus as well. City of Martinsburg police benefits include health insurance, vacation leave, sick leave, personal time and comp time, a pension plan, paid gym membership, longevity pay, tuition assistance, and a deferred compensation plan. Apply at cityofmartinsburg.org.
At Ortega's Cleaning Service LLC, we are here to provide you with exceptional residential and commercial cleaning services. With our team of skilled professionals, we are dedicated to ensuring that your space is spotless and inviting. Whether you need a thorough cleaning for your home or office, we have you covered. Our friendly and reliable staff is ready to tackle any cleaning task, leaving you with a fresh and organized space. Don't hesitate to reach out to us at 304-240-7244 to schedule an appointment or inquire about our services. We can't wait to serve you and exceed your expectations with our top-notch cleaning solutions.
The WVU Heart and Vascular Institute is pleased to announce that thoracic surgery with Dr. Shalini Reddy is now available in Martinsburg at WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center. Dr. Reddy has practiced thoracic surgery in the region for over 8 years and offers robotic laparoscopic surgeries for the lungs, esophagus, and more. For more information about thoracic surgery in Martinsburg, check us out online at mywvuheart.com.
Do you have someone in a nursing home Or are you worried about somebody you love going into a nursing home? The law firm of Daniel Staggers can protect your assets. Call the law firm of Daniel Staggers today at 304-267-3915. The Daniel Staggers Law Firm does elder care law, estate planning, and special needs trusts for disabled children and family members. Visit the Daniel Staggers Law Firm for your initial free consultation at 133 East John Street in Martinsburg. The Daniel Staggers Law Firm, when you need asset protection for you or for a family member. Mickey Dolenz, born this date, 1945. That probably makes you feel old a little bit there. This segment of the program today brought to you in part by elder care attorney Danny Staggers, if you are feeling old, by the way, and also by Craig Blair for State Senate. They committed to re-elect Craig Blair to the State Senate. All right, issue number 4 for that. Mr. Lawrence Schultz, you are on the clock.
Yes. Alabama's Republican legislature passed civil and criminal immunity for IVF clinics which accidentally or intentionally kill fertilized embryos called children by the state Supreme Court. Thus, in Alabama, IVF clinics can kill children, but others can't. That is, if we take what the Alabama Supreme Court said as true, that these are children, IVF clinics discard the test tubes all the time. What does anybody think about this? Aren't they kind of stuck?
All right. I'm not sure how to handle that question, but John, I'm going to let you figure it out because you're the wordsmith in the room, Mr. Gilstrap.
Yes.
All right, issue number 5. Now we go with John Overton.
I don't understand the question. I mean, it's the definition of terms. This is where whether you're talking about IVF or intrauterine devices, or abortion or any of this, it ultimately comes down to the definition of life, and by the definition of life, then you get to the definition of homicide, and it gets real squishy and difficult. And it's like if you grew up all your life